This is SoundNotion, the weekly podcast for new music and music news. I'm Patrick Gulo.
I'm Sam Sears.
I'm Ty Forker.
I'm Dave McDonald.
And I'm Nate Blyton.
Wow, we have a huge panel today.
Yep.
Why did we do that?
I think it's great. Yeah, so
it's going to be fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, Ty.
Hey, no problem. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's been a little while. But
Yeah, Ty, I haven't even seen you in forever just because we used to live in Michigan. I haven't been there since, last May now.
Yeah.
We miss
it's been a
you.
while.
I miss you guys.
yeah. So what's new, Ty? What's going on?
Not a whole lot. The most exciting thing for me right now is I think I've talked the department chair at the college I work at into offering a history of rock and roll class next fall.
Hey.
That I of course would be teaching.
Sweet.
You rock.
So I've got thanks, man. So I've got some research to do, but I'm really looking
teach
forward
them
to it.
about rock and roll.
It's a lot of snare drum on 2 and 4. And
Right.
He's going to teach him that he bought this 6-string in 1969.
You know what else has a lot of snare
Played
drum
it
on
till
2
his
and
fingers
4? Our
bled.
pick of the week that we'll get to at the end.
Yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
we're going to keep
I don't want
alluding
to
to it.
telegraph that punch too much, but
We also have, I think we should have a disclaimer for this week because Dave has not slept yet.
that's not true. I've slept for like 3-4 hours.
Oh, okay.
I
Sure.
drove in from St. Louis last night. I got home at 6:30, and we're recording this at 11. So I
it's
apologize if my thoughts are not entirely,
Speaking
Cogent.
of your hometown there, Dave, did you notice that I tweeted a piece that was recorded by Alarm Will Sound at the Mizzou New Music Festival over the summer?
Oh yeah.
Piece called Step. I can't remember the composer, which I should, but my Twitter stuff is down here. You can search through my Twitter spheres and
Right.
you'll find it.
I'll look for it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was good piece.
So let's go ahead and get this ball rolling.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you, 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 happy birthday. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
So that was a performance of
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
What
to
they
you.
really did was they counted all the way to 75 on one
Right.
pitch.
Right.
It wasn't happy birthday to you because I'd have to pay royalties. It was Hippo Birdie, what is it? Hippo Birdie 2U's.
What?
There's a jazz guy. I can't remember his name now. If you
What the heck was that?
in order to,
That's not a thing.
yeah, it is. Hippo Birdie 2U's, as in multiple sheep. Was recorded by a jazz guy. I can't remember his name now. As a way to do a reharmonization of Happy Birthday without having to pay royalties. Anyway,
All right.
Glad we got that taken care of. Sam Sears, ladies and gentlemen.
So I think we all know Philip Glass turned 75 the other day now,
Tuesday of this past week.
and there was a performance of his 9th Symphony with the American Composers Orchestra at Carnegie Hall, which I did not get to go to, unfortunately.
What are you doing?
Apparently the concert was sold a
We're
long
gonna
time
fire
ago.
you. We gotta find a new New York correspondent.
Hey.
yeah. And you're just hanging on by a thread as our Asian correspondent too.
That's right.
We have an Asian article this week, though.
Yeah.
We're okay.
So great.
An insightful.
Asian correspondent Patrick Takanoa.
But first,
The Grammys are next week.
Hey.
what's a Grammy?
A Grammy is a somewhat haphazardly awarded award that a bunch of people who we don't really know who they are decide on every year.
And a lot of people seem to take them very seriously.
That's right.
That's right.
Who those people are is a mystery.
And there are even classical music categories.
No,
Less than
Yes.
before.
that's
Now-
stupid.
When we talked about this last year, wasn't there like a big simplification in the offerings?
Yeah, they
for-
dropped a bunch of categories.
Yeah. So we talked about that last year. So friends of the show, I don't guess we can call them. We've had representatives. Sure, we can call them friends of the show. Friends of the show, Eighth Blackbird, is nominated for best classical. What is it? Contemporary classical composition. Stephen Mackey is nominated. But it was
That album was a pick of the week.
That's right.
Lonely Motel.
Lonely Motel.
Yeah, so Eighth Blackbird is nominated for Best Small Ensemble Performance
Yeah,
for that
that's-
piece.
That's right. That's right. So they're all over the Grammys.
That's interesting because Chris Richardson told us that piece was kind of unsuccessful, and it was like the remnants of some like kind of
other
larger
project, yeah,
operatic theatrical thing that didn't really work out, and they were just kind of glad to get it out in recording in some form. I thought it was great stuff
Yeah,
too.
and I ended up listening to that piece a lot. The recording that they put together. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad that happened at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did a little hunting around for some of the other pieces that were nominated for Best Contemporary Classical Composition. And I wasn't able to find like the exact pieces from a lot of the people, but you can find plenty of their music on the YouTubes.
Cool.
And, some pretty cool sounding music.
Well, great.
So for all I can tell, they come highly endorsed by me.
Yeah.
Composers sound like they know what they're doing anyway. when
They're
you hear
gonna.
it.
I'm sure they'll put that on the CD cover.
That's right.
Endorsed by Sam
Yeah.
Merciers.
That's right.
Sam Mercier says they have some good music on the YouTubes.
Yes.
And with Sez spelled S-E-Z.
There we go. Hey, and
So the best contemporary classical composition nominees are Robert Aldridge, Elmer Gantry, the title, George Crumb, The Ghost of Alhambra, which is amazingly on the 15th volume of the complete Crumb edition. I don't know how long they've been working on that, but I've had complete Crumb edition CDs since at least since I was an undergrad.
Yeah, that's gonna be quite some box set someday.
Right. And it is with Jefferson Friedman's Third String Quartet, New Amsterdam recording, Stephen Mackey, Lonely Motel, that we mentioned earlier, and Paul Reuter's Second Piano Concerto.
So who's gonna win?
Oh man, I don't know.
We should bet.
Let's do it.
All right.
I'm going with Mackey.
Yeah.
I'm going
I
with
got Mackey.
the Friedman.
Friedman?
I'm going with George Crumb because of that's just I think that the people picking he has more name recognition and because of that we will win.
I think his name recognition is more or less equivalent to that of Stephen Mackey.
Well, among what audience?
I don't know. I don't know who votes on these things.
Yeah, me neither.
We should
Mackey's
find
not
that
in the
out
history
before we
books
do a
yet.
show about him.
The Academy. Do you know? Let me tell you this. The Oscars, the Academy is made up of just about like 6,000 people.
Right.
I didn't know that. I thought it was like a couple old white men in a in a room just picking who's gonna win. I didn't know it was that many people.
No, it's a big, like, I guess you'd probably do it online now, but it used to be a big paper ballot thing,
Interesting.
like the Heisman.
Did you guys notice that nemesis of the show, Eric Whitacre, is nominated?
I did see that.
For what is it? For why is he the nemesis of our show? First of all,
Well, we've been hard on Eric Whitacre.
You know what, Eric? You can come on the show anytime. We'll be nice to you.
Yeah.
I like you. Okay.
They'll be nice.
I
like
like
you.
you.
We all like it.
speak for yourselves.
Well, okay.
Oh. So yeah, but
No, I'm sure he's a perfectly nice guy.
so how old are? Let's see. Oh, Ein Deutsches Requiem. Never saw that one before.
The best opera recording category is amazingly contemporary for opera recordings. It seems.
Well, because all the old operas have already been recorded by people that are much more famous than people that
There
are
you
still
go.
recording operas.
Yeah.
There you go. And that kind of fame for being an opera star is never going to happen again either.
Right.
Martin
yeah, that is
knew-
cool. We got Adams, Britten, Radivara, Verdi, and Vivaldi, but, what
Yeah,
are you going to
Dave.
do?
I was wondering if you could give Radivara's first name a go for us.
Nope.
I had AT&T say it for me this morning, and I still couldn't repeat it.
Okay.
Martineau, Six Symphonies for Best Orchestral Performance. His music is his orchestral music. I listened to some of it this morning, and it's, I could take it or leave it, but he's well known to any clarinet player because he has a pretty awesome clarinet sonata.
Cool.
That, compared to a lot of the normal workaday clarinet fare, is pretty entertaining to listen to.
So I'm sure we'll be discussing the winners next week.
Yeah.
Well, and we're under protest for Michael Dougherty not being nominated for anything.
We are.
Yes.
Stand
I'm
beside you,
launching an official protest.
I will not participate.
We'll have
When
to
are
have
they-
a meeting about this after
Yes.
the show.
Yes.
Yes.
When is that?
See me after class.
Yeah, right.
Yes, Mr. Tomasini. Speaking of awards, Pauline Oliveras, winner of the $50,000 John Cage Award.
Woo.
Pretty interesting. It's an award started in 1992, given out to someone who reflects the spirit of John Cage in their work, is what it says. And, Oliveras, I can buy that. No problem with that award.
Yeah.
She's a founder of the Deep Listening Institute. She and some cohorts came to New Mexico when I was there and did some pieces, like this amplified accordion piece with spatialization and speakers, and it was really cool.
Sweet. I haven't heard any of her stuff. I'll have to check it out.
What is it? Something swamp or something bog or alien bog.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
She became pretty well known early on for some electronic pieces, and I think it's Alien Bog is the name of it. Anyway,
What is that piece by her? I feel like accordions and everything. Never mind. I wanted to talk about this one with you.
was it her duets album with Weird Al?
It wasn't that.
Weird Al should do more projects like that. That'd be pretty fun.
It's Alien Bog. That's the name of the piece. That's
Alien
a
Bog.
really electronic piece. It's cool.
Cool. I'll have to check that out.
All right.
Great. So congratulations to her.
Yes.
$50,000. I'll take it.
Yeah, man.
And once again this week, as it should always be, Radiohead or some pieces thereof are in the news in new music news.
To be fair, anytime Radiohead is remotely linked in an article posted anywhere on the web, if you want to get on SoundNotion, write an article relating to Radiohead and concert music, Sam will find it and put it in the show.
That's right.
This is how you get your article on SoundNotion, because Sam looks for this stuff every day.
There's a perfectly reasonable reason for that.
What
Because
is-
Radiohead's the greatest band in the universe. God, what's wrong with you people?
I know. I should just not even mention it. Should go without saying.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, at least now they are, anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, I do want to talk about this Telegraph article.
Yeah.
By Lucy Jones.
Well, let me ask a quick
Let's
question.
point
The
out Lucy
Telegraph is who is the Telegraph? Is that like a reputable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Oh,
thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, just
Yes.
making sure. Just making sure because
Very
I'm
reputable.
feeling Ty's love on this one.
Yeah, they're out of the UK, the United Kingdom. But the writing of this article, like the basic premise, is that now Radiohead is legit because Steve Reich has decided to base this piece on their music,
Yeah.
Right.
which just doesn't make any sense. Like, classical music has thousands of years of people taking music from wherever and appropriating it, and that doesn't make that music any more classical. You know, either Radiohead's a really good band and makes really complex music, or they don't, regardless of if Steve Reich is covering them or not.
Right.
Right. Well, not only do I disagree with the assertion that it now makes them, gives them the respect or, lifts them up where they deserve to be, but saying that they're the first great classical rock band, which is also a ridiculous statement.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, progressive
The Moody
rock
Blues
is
called, they were a little pissed about that.
right.
And so did lots and lots and lots of other bands, from Traffic to Yes and whoever.
Gentle Giant, King Crimson, all those groups,
Yeah.
But
The other thing I wanted to point out, I mean, there's lots of examples of just bad writing. She quotes friend of the show Alex Ross and then paraphrases him 2 sentences later as if she forgot that she quoted him.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the really interesting one. She lists among notable minimalist composers Kerry Riley, Lamont Young, and Philip Glass. And I thought Lamont Young was a really curious addition. I mean, it's great.
If
He was
all
the
you know
original,
about
though.
minimalism is what you read in a textbook that was written within 3 years of the founding of the movement, then those
No,
would be...
wait. Time out.
What?
So here's the kicker is, well, because one, I looked at those and I thought, you don't see Lamont Young in a lot of places, and you usually see John Adams.
Right.
Yeah.
So by chance, I checked the Wikipedia article on minimal music.
Oh, yeah. Lamont Young features prominently in this Wikipedia article.
Interesting.
Yeah, and not John Adams in the opening where they explain the notable composers.
So
You know-
you think it was a little lazy research?
I think it was a lot of lazy research.
Okay.
Well, it's hard to hassle somebody too much for writing about how good Radiohead is and how good Steve Reich is, because, like, I mean, this is still a really cool thing that's happening. So, what exactly is going on? Is Steve Reich doing he's writing a piece inspired by material from a couple Radiohead songs? Is that right?
Yeah. Like a jigsaw falling into place and everything in its right place.
Cool.
Yeah,
but
and
I
just
don't
to be
understand
clear,
how that makes Radiohead more classical.
It
No,
does.
doesn't.
Like Mark
Doesn't it
Anthony
make
Turnage
Steve
wrote this
Reich
piece a
more
couple
pop?
of years ago that was on the Proms concert that kind of quoted Single Ladies, and I don't think that makes
fun.
Beyonce classical.
Right.
But it does make their melodic fragments or their ideas full of enough content to be able to expand into an
Right.
orchestral work, and so that's an interesting thing. So like actually doing a classical performance of or arrangement of some Radiohead song would be interesting. Like, I mean, the kind of examples that we've seen with what's happened with Aphex Twin's music of Philip Glass and Alarm Will Sound doing arrangements of that stuff. That'd be I'd be interested to see if Steve Reich would do an actual reinterpretation of one of those songs.
Yeah,
That'd be
and
pretty
I just
wild.
want to be clear that I am really excited about this project.
Yeah.
Like I think the project itself is really cool, and I'm really excited to see what happens. I'm just not a fan of really crappy writing about projects that I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
I want to know why everyone always wants to use jazz references as ways to describe Radiohead. Like,
Because, Sam, jazz musicians are smart and artistic and thoughtful, and rock and
Yeah.
roll musicians are basically gorillas with drumsticks.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
she's describing
Does that answer your question?
perfectly.
I think I've wrapped that up with
Yeah.
a bow.
She's just talking about the freestyle, quote, freestyle loose nature of Radiohead's gigs, particularly the always elongated, trippy funk outs of everything in its right place, that one can see the influence of Charles Mingus and Miles Davis. I'm like, well, okay, maybe, but do you think you can support that statement? I don't. I mean, like, you could say the influences of, Barbra Streisand and Burt Bacharach, I'm sure you could find something that,
And Fish and Dave Matthews Band.
yeah. I mean,
You know?
that's, I think a lot of it.
Member and any Dave Matthews member or fan would totally disagree with each other over that too.
Yeah. I think Radiohead gets saddled sometimes with the jazz moniker because the New Yorker, Alex Ross, said something about avant-garde jazz sound in everything in its right place. And basically because of the national anthem, which I would
Yeah,
agree
right.
with in that case, but that's not what all of their music says. I mean, the national anthem is one of the most distinctive, not like a lot of other things kinds of songs.
Right.
right.
Anyway, so yes, I'm looking forward to the project as well.
Yep.
He speculates that he won't actually quote some of the material from the pieces, but I hope he does. I hope he actually does.
I mean, I'm always interested to see what he's doing anyway, and this connection between the pop and classical world is always fun to make as well. So
Right.
we'll see what
Anyway,
happens.
the pieces are going to be premiered at South Bank, which we talked about last week as well, which is where the Rest Is Noise Festival is going to go down. If I'm remembering correctly,
So
correct?
this is happening at the Rest of Noise Festival, or
No.
not?
It's
Oh.
premiering at the same place on 5 March 2013. I found a little more, some sort of tangentially presented information on The Guardian this morning. It's talking about The Rest Is Noise, South Bank Festival, but then they're talking about some of the other stuff that South Bank is going to program, and that's one of the pieces.
Yeah.
So anyway, looking forward to that.
We now turn to Asian correspondent Patrick Gulo.
Hello.
Hello, Patrick. Thank
So
you
the-
for joining us today.
Okay.
So there's a question on
Patrick's
everyone's
credentials
lips.
include wanting to be Asian since 2004.
No, I just lived in Japan.
So what's the question
No-
that
no
is on
problem.
the what's the question that's on everybody's mind this week in new music, Patrick?
It's can Asians save classical music?
How many times have I heard
Can
that
I
question?
first say that I resent this notion that classical music needs to be saved from something?
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll continue and we'll pass that presupposition for a moment.
So there's an article, if you guys haven't seen it. It's been reposted a number of places. An article by Michael on Paulberg, Can Asians Save Classical Music? First appearing in Slate on Thursday. And he talks a lot about how there's been this influx of Asians wanting to go to classical concerts where the numbers are actually rising, or at least staying at a higher level than than what used to be a predominantly white audience, which has been declining. There was a survey that went on. He notes of Asian Americans ages 18 to 24 responding to the same survey where they asked for concert attendance. 14% reported attending a classical concert in the past year, more than any other demographic in that age group. Asian attendance rates match or surpass the national average up through the 45 to 54 age range. So the younger the classical audience gets, the more Asian it becomes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do we have to speculate why this is? I mean, I'm fairly certain it's just because, there's more of a push in the family, to take music lessons where there used to be in American households, maybe like 50 years ago or something like that.
Yeah. Not as
Yeah.
many Americans.
Well, these are
taking-
American households too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the American households of the 1950s, I should
You mean
say.
American households generally, as
Yeah.
opposed to Asian American households specifically.
Yeah.
There's an interesting point about how in the past most of your premier violinists were Jewish, and I think you can easily draw an inference between music lessons and musical achievement as a symbol of sort of middle class or upper middle class achievement. You have the money and the time to have your kids go out and take violin lessons or piano lessons, and it just works its way through different culture sets. And it's really
And
not
obviously,
surprising to
those
me.
people, when they get older, are the people that are going to appreciate
Correct.
the music or listening to the music.
And plus, anyone who's had an office on the 5th floor at the music practice building knows that there are a lot of Asians in classical music.
Well, here's the thing, though. So we all know this, all right? It's always violin, cello, or piano. So the author notes that if an Asian, someone who's Asian and going to a conservatory or taking music lessons, whatever, if the instrument doesn't offer the possibility of soloist superstardom, you won't see them playing it. Which, I mean, to tell you the truth, let's say the whole world, this trend continued into the future, and for a long time, and just everything became, the classical world just became more and more Asian as we went on. I think it would just be a bunch of string orchestras.
Right.
It could be, but
I mean,
Yeah.
that's who wrote that book? Amy Chua a couple of years ago.
Which I
Battle
saw.
Hymn of the Tiger Mother.
I saw a talk with her the other day too. It was
Yeah.
at 92nd Street Y. I popped my head in to listen for a little while.
And that's one of the things she talks about is all of these tiger mothers force their children to practice violin, piano, or cello.
Yeah. What if the kid came up and said, "You know what? I'm really feeling oboe, man. I gotta tell you, I'm really feeling it."
I don't know if I'd let my kid practice the oboe in my house.
Well,
Have you heard beginning oboists? I mean, dang.
well, have you heard beginning violinists? It doesn't sound so
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah, but they can
a little
not be out of
squeaky.
tune with somebody else.
Well,
But in
I
that
don't know.
article, he makes some interesting points. How within the family, it's never presented as a choice.
Yeah.
Like, hey, is this something you'd like to do? It's like, hey, this is your instrument. Better figure it out. So that's
Right.
an interesting cultural dynamic that I don't necessarily have an understanding of, but
Yeah.
it definitely throws some wrinkles into the process.
Right.
Well,
So why do you think it's always these instruments, though? Like, I mean, if it's set, they talk about the possibility of soloist superstardom, but I mean, does every Asian parent expect their kid to, be a top-notch soloist?
No, I think
Well,
they
I
just
think-
want to give them that chance, though.
Well, I mean, it seems more like those are the pretty instruments, and
well,
that's that.
if they were looking for a pretty instrument, viola would be in that mix.
Oh,
I think.
I'm sure it would be.
No, I think viola just comes in for the violinists that aren't that good.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's the same thing with, regular academic training too. Like, no one's really hoping that their son turns out to be a really great, paralegal or, nurse's assistant. They're gunning for the top in whatever they do. It's that culture of
That-
discipline and
that-
hard work and aim for the best.
Right, in a hierarchical way.
Right, but so getting back to the article, I don't think this trend is going to be the thing to save classical music. What's going to save classical music is if we buck this trend and bring in all of these other demographics that are not coming in as great numbers as Asian Americans.
I just like the idea of, like, the alternative bands in the 90s or whatever that got huge over in Japan or whatever, that new composers might be able to say that, like, yeah, the reception in the United States isn't too hot, but it's really hot in Korea right now.
Wind ensembles are like that. Like, wind
Yeah.
ensembles in Japan are huge.
Yeah.
In Korea,
Companies
too.
have their own wind ensembles. Like probably Toyota or something. They probably have like 7 wind ensembles.
Cool.
Like, I'm serious. There's just like the company wind ensemble, and like not just companies, like any organization. There's like a music. It's kind of like how it used to be. Like, they had like NBC Orchestra or something.
Right.
Yeah, our motor companies have like a darts team.
Well, you better believe they've got NASCAR teams.
Yeah.
There you go.
Bowling leagues.
Fantasy NASCAR.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
It's got to be.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you can play
if
fantasy
it's not, I'm
fantasy
gonna see
movies and fantasy Congress. I used to play fantasy Congress.
Dave, if it's
That was
not, I'm
pretty
going to see
cool.
if fantasynascar.com is available right now. Because I'm going to get rich.
Yep. There you go. You heard it first here on SoundNotion.
Well, you just gave it up to everybody that's listening live. You
The
better get there
millions of
quick.
people. That's right. And we know how heavy our audience is into the NASCARs.
I know, right? There's a lot of I think that's an untapped market, is the overlap. We should talk to some classical marketing people about this.
Yeah, Patrick.
This
I'm not
overlap
marketing.
between
Okay.
this overlap between the NASCAR audience and the Vivaldi audience.
I bet if we got Christian Lindbergh out and in his racing leathers and did that, the trombone piece I'm talking about, right? The motorbike trombone
No,
piece.
he just
No.
dresses like that all the time.
He wears racing leathers
Yeah,
for everything.
He wears leather chaps all the time.
You haven't heard of this, Dave? I think it's called the motorbike.
No, I
Concerto
know
or
Christian
something.
Lindbergh. I don't know this piece though.
It does lots of growling and like sounds like you're cycling through the gears and stuff.
Yeah.
And when he premiered it, at least he wore like a full leather motorcycle racing suit.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
He wears some strange clothes.
Can you tell I was good friends
like-
with a trombone player in undergrad?
Because he's
Yeah.
yeah.
He's the Han Bin of the trombone world.
I don't think he's quite the Han Bin of the trombone world.
No, he's not. Nobody's the
I
Han
think
Bin of
he's the
anything.
Christian Lindbergh of the trombone world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
All right. So, I mean, as we see Asian audiences getting bigger over time, does that really mean anything? Will it change the culture of classical music, or is it just going to be pretty much.
It means that
How would it change the culture of classical music? They're doing this to be a part of the culture of classical
Well, I don't
music
know.
that
You know,
already exists.
I'd be interested to. I wonder how. I mean, as far as new music is concerned, do you see an even percentage of Asian musicians participating in new music initiatives than you do traditional classical music initiatives?
What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean.
Like symphony orchestra, you know, New York Philharmonic, as opposed to, I don't know, you know, whatever new music ensemble, Eighth Blackbird. But Eighth Blackbird does have
I mean, I don't have the facts to back this up.
Yeah, right.
But I know there are a lot of very successful Asian composers living in the United States, and certainly the most recent Pulitzer winner, Zhao Long, is a Chinese American. And there was another recent Asian American Pulitzer winner, wasn't there? I don't remember. But anyway, I mean, I think. In new music, do you mean writing or playing?
Well, do you think I'm just saying? Do you think the culture of classical music will get more? Will kind of revert to a more conservative, programming?
I don't know. I mean, it's more than it already has.
Yeah. I don't know.
Why
I mean,
would it?
I don't
understand
well,
why would you make that assumption?
I'm not making the assumption at all. I'm just noting that I think there are less Asian Americans associated with new music groups than there are in traditional ensembles.
And I think the article makes
so.
that. The article kind of makes that argument too, that the training system, that like the Suzuki training system is really popular.
Yeah.
And it emphasizes precision and learning by rote and things that are really applicable in music of the Baroque and the classical period, and that become, less and less applicable as music gets into Romantic period and contemporary periods where things are less mechanic and more emotional, I guess, is the argument in the article. Not that I necessarily agree with that.
Right. But what I think that does is it doesn't change how many of these young players grow up to become new music performers or anything like that. I think it just affects the audience more than anything. This is not something that is going to limit people, because I think when you get older as a musician and you're finally exposed to this newer, weirder music, you either take to it or you don't. And I think it's inevitable that some of these people will take to it. What is not going to change is that these students who don't go on to become the rock star musicians of their generation, but that are the people in the audiences that this article is talking about, those people are not going to, in their Suzuki methods, be exposed to that new music, and they're not going to become new music audiences. I don't think it really has an effect on the people that are making the music, but it does have an effect on the people that are going to listen to it.
Interesting. And so it helps more.
That would be my assumption. Again, I don't have the facts to back this up.
I don't know. I mean, you could be right. It's I'm just noting, like, the number of collaborations I've been able to personally that I've had, have not. I don't know. I guess I've seen less Asian American, influence in my performance. Not influence, but participation in newer music for me than I have with other ethnic groups. I mean, I think I don't know. Maybe it's the instrumentation too, because of like violin, cello, and piano. A lot of new music doesn't just revolve around those instruments.
Right.
That could be an issue too.
Well, I think we can say with certainty that as orchestral music and playing in orchestras rises in popularity with Asian Americans, the disappointment that Asian Americans feel is going to increase as more orchestras continue to fail. There are going to be more and more disappointed Asian people in the United States.
Well,
Perhaps.
Sam.
was trying to figure out if there's a segue there.
Yeah.
Speaking
For a minute,
of
I thought. Yeah.
disappointing people-
Speaking of disappointment, no, that didn't do it.
No.
Friend of the show, Rob Deemer.
Who is
This
not
week-
disappointing at all?
No, he's great.
This week on New Music Box has an article entitled "Inmates Running the Asylum," talking about the overall ideas, just talking about the value and how much can be accomplished by student organizations in composition studios or just music areas at the college level, and in situations where specifically suggesting that the students use student funds, from student government, which there's always some sort of well, not always. In a, quote, real university, there's going to be some sort of infrastructure for student government, and hence fees, hence money that can be used for different projects. And I don't know that we talked about it a tremendous amount on the show, but I know that of all my friends sitting here on the Skypes right now, we've talked about this kind of thing a lot, and actually taken part in these kinds of things where we kind of go outside the studio and organize things to happen.
Yep.
I mean, that's what this podcast is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The big thing that he really emphasizes that I think is perhaps lacking in some programs is suggesting that it's the faculty's job to mentor and coach students in doing these things, rather than just say, you might want to do something like this, and then the students are either going to do it or not do it. I mean, you should be going out there and really encouraging. And in the same way, you want to make sure your students are, considering their music very contemplatively, and producing enough music for the degree program. You should also be trying to train them on how to use their networks and to leverage, funds from different sources on campus. You should be taking an active part in that, because you're not going to produce composers who are going to go to Hollywood and get jobs writing for movies, and most of them are not going to get even university jobs. So they got to have some other tools to help them get by.
Right.
Right, and they need to be shown that this is a viable thing, and there's a lot to learn, and they need support during those early failures and experiments. Right.
And I think probably part of the problem is from the fact that it's an older generation still right now. At least in the United States, culture is changing so fast that it's hard to ask someone who's 65 or 70 years old teaching at a university to be hip about how to use modern communications technology and organize events like this. But going forward, I think this needs to be something that composition areas should really place an emphasis on. Mm-hmm. If they don't want if they want to have any kind of job placement or happiness quotient in their graduates over time.
So,
what do you guys think?
Well, Rob,
I think that's a terrible idea. We shouldn't focus on these things at all. We should just teach them to write music and then hope for the best.
And then leave them swimming.
And then just none of this stuff.
And that's kind of what happens in a lot of instances.
Let's teach them the range of the clarinet and what an octatonic scale is. Done.
Yes.
Yeah.
We made a composer.
In the article, Lori Deemer is Rob's wife. She's a professional photographer. Cool. She has a sweet picture. I don't know if you guys know much about Michael Lowenstern, but he's sort of like a cottage industry bass clarinet virtuoso guy who every year just gets more technologically embedded. And the picture of him, I don't know what he's doing there, but I think you guys will agree it looks awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty plugged in there.
He appears to be rocking out.
Yeah.
He's got, looks like an amp and two sort of touchpads and or monitors and a mic and two on-board mics if you look closely.
Yeah.
The bass clarinet has the preferred system because of the way woodwind instruments function. He has something that's around the left hand and then something that's around the right hand / bell of the horn to capture all the noise.
He's got a MIDI controller there on the mic stand as well.
Yeah.
All the more reason to see live performances.
Yep.
So, moral of the story, if Michael Lowenstern is performing in your area, you should go hear him.
Yeah, and if you're a burgeoning student organization at, in a composition studio somewhere in the country, and you dig Michael Lowenstern, write him an email and see
Yeah.
if he would be interested in coming, and then talk to your student government and say, hey, I've got this super bad to the bone bass clarinet player. Can you give me $1,500 to fly him here and rent him a car or something while he's here?
That's been my favorite thing, I think, in the last couple of years, is just realizing how much people who are like famous musicians, if you call them, they'll probably come play for you. I mean, like,
Or they'll come and talk to you on SoundNotion.
or they,
As we know.
yeah, exactly, right. And it just works. You just have to do it and go for it, and it'll probably work out really nicely.
Yep.
I have a question. In the last article, we were all being politically correct, right?
I don't
No?
know.
I wasn't saying anything.
Yeah, I wasn't talking
You weren't?
much. That's the only way I can be politically correct.
I don't know. I don't think we crossed any lines.
We'll
I
see.
think
We
I
will
think-
judge based on the hate mail that we do or do not receive.
All
I
right.
think the article led us into some sweeping generalizations
Yes.
that we may have played along with, and for better or worse. So
And none of us being Asian Americans ourselves, it might
Right.
not be quite
Yeah,
legit.
like, you hate the stereotype, but, I know for a fact that every Korean in Michigan is a piano major. And they all go to the 5th floor of the music building in the morning and hammer away on music and every piano up there. I mean, that's just a fact.
Right.
At least
All right.
given our experience. Okay, so I think we're about done with the stories for today. But
Except to say, composers who are running studios, you should be encouraging your students to reach out and do their own programs and get money from student organizations. I don't think it happens enough.
and students do stuff.
Yeah, do stuff.
Do stuff. You heard it
like
here
this.
first. Do stuff.
And you know what? Guys, some of that.
I know doing stuff may not be the first thing you think of when you get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Deemer makes a good point that, he addresses the issue of like, okay, we're going to teach the students how to do this kind of thing on top of all the other stuff because, you can, in a way, I mean, I know we're not expected to be as good at, sight reading figured bass as you might have had to be able to do 150 years ago or whatever, but the requirements of, traditional harmonic stuff and then 20th century harmonic stuff and then electronic music stuff and music history, which, for some reason just keeps getting bigger every year. That was a
For
joke.
some reason. What reason might that be? I don't understand.
Steve Miller. Time keeps on slipping, slipping. So yeah, I mean, it's not like just you can decide to start doing it and flip the switch because composition majors or music majors in general, but composition majors more than anyone else are under a lot of strain to learn a lot of stuff while they're in school.
Yeah. Try to find something that other people aren't doing and do that.
There
It'll
you
help.
go. Like,
And we already called SoundNotion. By
Yeah.
The way.
yeah, we already got the new music podcast, so sorry.
But we'd love to have a competitor.
That's right.
'cause-
We got James Holt over at My Ears Are Open. If you don't
That's
listen to
right.
My Ears Are Open, you should. It's really good.
Yep.
He talks to performers and they're really interesting little interviews.
Oh, you know what? Also, is Richard Zaru for No Extra Notes. If you guys remember.
Oh,
that.
yeah. So we got plenty of people. We should have James and Richard on sometime.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
should.
Because I actually don't listen to No Extra Notes, but I do try to listen to My Ears Are Open whenever there's a new one, and it's really interesting interviews with cool people.
yeah.
Anyway,
The pick of the week.
Dun, dun, dun. Or rather,
so
In honor of himself turning 75, Philip Glass has written his 9th symphony.
I don't think it was
premiered-
written in honor of himself turning 75.
I know for a fact that it was.
I think it happened to be involved in his 75th birthday stuff, in as much as this premiere recording was released on Tuesday on his birthday, and it was performed by the American Composers Orchestra, as we said earlier, at Carnegie Hall on Tuesday.
Yes. It's American premiere, correct?
It was U.S. premiere, yeah,
Yes,
on
premiere.
Tuesday. So, if you were not at the European performances and were not at Carnegie Hall on Tuesday night, you may not have heard this piece. It's very long, and we listened to it so you don't have to. and I mean that sincerely.
And you owe us big
Don't
for that.
listen to it. It's bad.
I
Yeah,
liked
it's-
it.
Did you really?
I
Nate?
mean, as much as I like all this stuff, it's
Yeah, I like it. I like it that much too. I figured out what I would say about it because it was I think very aptly performed on the recording by the Bruckner Orchestra in Linz. Because if you want long, ponderous, boring orchestral music, you know, if you can't find any Glass, just whip up some Bruckner. But forgot where I was going with that. I'm trying not to come across as like just a Philip Glass hater, but I was just not a fan of the piece.
well. What do you say we
So-
listen to a little bit?
Yeah,
of that,
let's
and then-
listen. Let's listen a little bit.
Here we go. This is a segment, a couple minutes in of the third movement.
This
Which is
Philip
actually-
Glass. Okay.
My favorite part of the entire symphony.
Okay, so this is Philip Glass Symphony Number 9, excerpt from the second movement. This is
Third
performed-
movement.
Third movement.
Third movement, sorry. Performed by, gosh, I'm blanking on the orchestra. It's
Bruckner
Dennis-
Orchestra.
Bruckner
The Bruckner Orchestra Linz, conducted by Dennis Russell Davies.
Here goes. So who thinks they could do a drop of the needle test and tell whether this was a Philip Glass piece or not?
I'm pretty. Well, that part, because that's the most like classical Glass part there is. You know, to me, that's like
Give up
he's
some of
finally
the snare
throwing
drum
the
on 2 and 4 stuff.
yeah. He's finally throwing a bone to the old school Glass fans. It seems like right there. You finally get some arpeggios.
Yeah. What did you call them earlier?
Glass.
Glasspeggios.
Glasspeggios?
Yes.
Not
Your
to be
morning
confused
bowl
with
of-
the very popular Philip Glass themed breakfast cereal.
Yes. Yes.
From the makers of Raisin Brahms.
Yes.
Tim, have you seen
Raisin
that?
Brahms.
Guten Tag.
It's the power of the arts.
See, now you've brought the show to a halt because all I'm doing is going, let's see, Debussy, breakfast cereal, no. Ravel, breakfast cereal, no.
We should. Oh my goodness, this is a brilliant idea for a
we've done this.
Tumblog.
We've done this. We
If
did this-
anybody wants to make a Tumblog of this that has some Photoshop skills, you come up with a composer-themed breakfast cereal every day and mock up a box of the breakfast cereal. All right?
I remember there was we started a hashtag on this.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't.
Ty didn't. Ty,
No,
Ty
Patrick
participated in
did.
it.
Yeah.
Really?
So the hashtag is still out there.
No,
Yeah.
it was a while
No,
ago.
hashtags, Twitter messages die. See how I said Twitter messages, like in the New York Times style guide? They don't say tweets because that's not dignified.
That's right.
It's
It's actually pretty coarse just hearing you say it, Dave. Stay away from that.
I apologize if anybody was offended by my use of such vulgar language. I will
right.
only say Twitter messages
because
henceforth.
we are so PC and
That's
sophisticated
right.
on this show.
I mean, we demonstrated that earlier in our discussion of Asian Americans in classical music, I think. No, but anyway, to return to our topic of the Ninth Symphony of Philip Glass, since a few weeks ago we talked about, Nate, you and I went to see Einstein on the Beach,
Yeah.
and I really liked it. It wasn't like the greatest thing I've ever seen, but I really liked it.
Mhm.
And I thought I should listen to more Glass and give Glass another chance.
Yeah.
And so I really, really wanted to like this piece. I knew it was coming out on Tuesday, and I went and tracked it down and listened to it. It's a long piece, and I listened
50
to it.
minutes.
50 minutes, and I've listened to it all the way through without stopping, not doing anything else twice in the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And I really don't like it. I mean, I've listened to it in little chunks as well, in addition to those 2 long full listenings. But I really, really don't like it. And it reminded me that everything that I liked about Einstein was not the music.
Well, I mean, there's also a lot different between this symphony and the music of Einstein on the Beach.
Sure,
as well.
I mean, there are a lot. It's 40 years later.
Yeah, and so like what you said, I think that production of Einstein on the Beach that we saw, I think that was one of my favorite things I've ever seen. I've listened to Einstein on the Beach a lot too, and it's.
But you probably liked it.
Well, yeah, I liked the music, but like seeing that whole production was one of the most incredible things. And Philip Glass has done many film scores since then as well.
Right.
And that's a comparison that I know we've made outside the show of like this symphony to a lot of his film music and how it sounds like it would fit in, or it would be, I mean, really similar stylistically to some of the other film scores.
It does sound very filmy.
This to me sounds like an astoundingly forgettable Michael Giacchino film score.
To me, it sounds like
without the chromaticism.
Right.
At different parts, it sounds like an astoundingly forgettable, like, grade 3 band piece in a lot of instances. I have purchased this symphony, which anyone who knows me will be astounded. I spent $10 on the iTunes and purchased this because it's no mystery to most people that know me that I'm not a Philip Glass.
iTunes?
The iTunes.
We have the
internet.
iTunes, and the SoundNotion.
On the YouTube.
Yes, I am not a fan of Philip Glass, and so I purchased it as sort of a symbolic gesture, and I've listened to it all the way through 4 times. And it is not good. It sounds lazy, like he felt obligated to write it. And here's the big deal with what I find immensely boring about it is that he's used these minimalist procedures throughout his career, and the things that he's repeating are often like shorter little cells of things going up and down, and then there will oftentimes be a melody that's in itself maybe a repeated thing, but it has a more through-going kind of feel like a melody. This symphony feels like each section, it's not like there's repeated pieces that are short enough that they're repeated in a minimalistic way. It doesn't sound like minimalism most of the time. It sounds like really, really boring romantic era music with really simple phrase structure. And it's very downbeat intensive. It never does anything rhythmically to it does transition a couple of times rhythmically with actually some interesting little cross rhythms, but those moments are cool to listen to, but they're very few and far between. Most of the time, it's just downbeat heavy, and it doesn't transition, which, once again, I don't have a big problem with that in and of itself, but it'll just, now I'm doing this, and now I'm doing this.
I mean, a lot of Glass's music does that, though. I mean, you listen to, you watch Koyaanisqatsi, and it's like one thing for 20 minutes, and then it slams into something else. Yeah, I do too.
But like this barely interesting romantic sounding thing where you hear like 4 phrases of this one thing, and it just does something else, and it does that in the same kind of way, and then it does something else. And then, even when he really cleaves to some sort of idiom that seems to be, outside the normal Philip Glass thing, it sounds kind of ham-handed and silly, like the backbeat things that he does, and I don't know.
At the risk of speaking for Sam, I would say that we have immense respect for Philip Glass. We just really don't like this piece.
No. And I actually went out of my way this week to listen to some other Glass pieces just so I could have, I'm not a Glass scholar. So I listened to a lot of his stuff, and, I actually found a piece that I'm a pretty big fan of. I like the violin concerto. And some of the string quartets are pretty interesting, but the amount of interesting stuff in this symphony, it should have been like 15 minutes long, not 50 minutes long.
Right. And the things that I did find interesting about Einstein on the Beach were not present, or at least not prevalent, in this piece. Patrick, Ty, you guys have any thoughts?
Patrick likes it, I can tell.
No, I gotta say it's not my favorite piece.
Oh,
Man.
You know, you heard it
way
here,
to take a
folks.
stand, Patrick.
You heard it here, folks.
It's not my
No.
favorite piece. It's not my favorite piece either. There.
Yeah.
Can we try? I
Well,
want to
I'm-
try to listen to
well,
another.
I gotta tell you, you know, I do like most of the string quartets. I like. I mean, I was really into the Brooklyn Rider CD that came out last year.
Yeah, that was a good CD.
And I love those. I mean, the recordings were great next to having the piece themselves. But I know what you mean by this grade 3 band thing, and I don't think it's
Like dumbed
necessarily
down
the-
David Holzinger.
well, I don't think
Yes.
it's necessarily the writing, but when the recording has this really, I don't know
The recording is very flat. That's something I thought also.
yeah, like the trumpet just kind of blasts out right there, like in a way that you would never hear it in another recording that is, you know, like a professionally produced recording with a symphony orchestra. Like it sounds very
but that I could
unbalanced.
absolutely hear in the underscoring of a space opera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm thinking would be a perfect vehicle for this symphony is a remix project, because you get so many stretches of like nice, clean, uninterrupted, this, if you know what I mean,
Right.
and then uninterrupted, clean this, and then this, and then this, and I think that's part of the problem. It's just like each little section is like, here's this clean, well-defined, always rhythmic section, followed by another one that's pretty much like it, but a little different. And that's the other thing. The tempi doesn't seem to shift a huge amount between the first, second, and last movement either. It always has kind of the same feeling of propulsion.
I want to listen to another little section because I want to try to catch this one thing that really bugged me that happened a lot in the piece.
I think this is the
We
first time
play-
we've had a pick of the week where there were actually some hardcore I don't like it's going down.
Yeah,
Right.
this is like the least favorite pick of the week I think we've had.
Yeah.
I don't
What?
think that's how the pick of the week's supposed to go either.
No, I think it should be anything that's
Well,
significant. You
And
think
this is very significant as well. So yeah,
I
that's
think,
fair.
if anything, us having a link to the Ninth Symphony on our page being the pick of the week, is probably going to have almost zero effect on Philip Glass's international sales. And if anything, even though we're saying, or at least Dave and I are saying we don't like it, it'll make more people buy it
Yeah.
than not.
Right. It kept popping through my head to have the like reading rainbow, but don't take our word for it.
take a look.
The more you know.
Book, Reading Rainbow.
Thank you, Dave.
So here's a little bit from the second movement. I'm just guessing, so we'll see if this is what Dave's talking about.
There's this backbeat, this snare drum backbeat.
It's back.
Go to like 4 minutes.
Take it back a little
I'm
bit.
gonna try. We didn't plan this, obviously. Okay. We're not gonna catch it.
We'll fix this in post.
No, we're not. We're just gonna leave it like this. There's a new rule on SoundNotion. I don't know if I told you this, Sam. You don't get to say we'll fix it in post unless you're the one doing post.
Wait a minute.
There we go.
Oh, yes.
Did they just phase and go to on beats there?
Yeah. No, I think they started on beats and went to off beats.
It phases. The line
Yeah.
phases a little bit as it goes down, but not in enough way, in a compelling enough way to make me like it.
Well, I mean, the figure is just that recurring beat. It's not interesting enough for the phasing to be compelling, right?
Now-
Like phasing between two sets of people playing just a steady beat is not interesting.
Yeah, it seemed like when
That's
he
like
went,
you get that when you're driving around town and you pull up to a stoplight, your blinker and the person in front of you is blinker. Like
Just
it's
now,
as
when you
exactly
got
as
that-
That's
interesting.
awesome.
It's exactly as interesting as waiting at a stoplight, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
just now when he got to this section that has the trumpet playing, like he got from the previous section, which is really, 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 really similar to this, and he had a moment of repose, as if we needed to stop and gather our senses before we continue with adding one more piece to the texture.
Okay.
So I think that's about
I
it.
And I can't remember where it is now. I should have had this pulled
should-
up, but there's one part, and if I say this and you guys know what I'm talking about, it'll prove that it's it'll mean something to me. Do you know the part in the symphony where it sounds like he's channeling John Philip Sousa? Where there's like a piccolo melody?
No.
It's a piccolo melody that has really like turn of the century marching band kind of sounding harmony. Anyway,
I feel like calling anything in this piece of melody is a bit of a stretch.
yeah. Well, see, that's the problem. It wants to be melody, but it's not compelling enough to carry you through as a listener melodically, and it's not fast enough or intricate enough to create a minimalistic kind of rhythmic texture. It's just boring.
So,
Yeah.
a top voice and a harmonic progression.
So, sorry, Maestro Glass. I really wanted to like your music. I
But
really, really did. And
but don't take our word for it.
Yeah.
that's right.
Check it out on iTunes.
It is on. I think it's an iTunes exclusive, at least for now.
Yeah.
Which
it's
was
not
a
on
bummer
Amazon
because I
yet.
didn't want to spend any money in the iTunes store, but whatever. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this week's Sound Notion.
Wait,
What?
can I butt in here?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
I have to go back to a previous topic. I put SoundNotion research team to work, and hashtag classical cereal was suggested by Patrick Gulo on Twitter.
There you go.
And my contributions, which are oddly relevant to today, were Honey Nut Oliverios and Rice Krispies.
There we go.
Nice.
Did I say one?
I think Ty is a time traveler because he just went back in time and did those tweets. There's no way that ended
I
up
remember
happening.
those now. Actually, I remember those.
Nice. Well played.
All right.
Back in
So
October.
we invite the listeners out there to help us out with some composer serial names.
A save from the Sound Notion research, the crack research staff.
Now, what was the hashtag again, Ty?
Classic cereal.
Classic cereal. All right.
Classical
Patrick,
cereal.
did you invent that hashtag, or was
Classic
that somebody else's?
No, I did. I'm an inventor.
Okay.
Congratulations.
How creative of you.
Yeah. And thanks
Yeah.
again, Ty, for coming on the show, and good luck with the rock class too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I saw that you've been talking to friend of the show, Ken Ueno, about resources for the class.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
By the way, Ken has
he
been
just-
mentioned in Strings magazines this last issue
I don't know.
as
I
a
saw that.
top 25 composer.
Cool.
Hey.
Top 25 for the strings.
Sweet.
Cool.
Strings.
You can find the music on the YouTubes.
Stop adding articles, Sam.
That's how you
Alright.
make anything sound like really dorky and like you're really out of touch. It's just add
Yeah.
the to beginning of it.
That's right.
I saw that movie with the Batman.
You just made yourself sound 30 years older.
It's impressive.
So that's going to do it for this week's The Sound Notion. To read more about any of the topics that we covered today or to comment on the show, if you have thoughts you'd like to share, if you'd like to tell us how racist we were when we talked about Asian classical musicians, the place to do that is soundnotion.tv/SN. You can leave us a note there. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter, where you can use the hashtag classical cereal to join in our fun. And if you start that Tumblr, be sure to post about it on soundnotion.tv/SN. This show and all our shows are available in the iTunes store, where you can subscribe totally for free because we're that wonderful to you, and catch every episode auto-magically downloaded to your favorite device. Sound Notion's introduction includes music by Patrick Gulo and video by Tyler Lepp. We were joined this week, thank you again, by Ty Forker. Thanks again for watching or listening, and we'll see you back next week.
Goodbye, 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 goodbye. All right, that's enough of that.
Bye.